Morning, everyone. In today's video, we're going to talk about champions and why they are really good to have. And I think most people would agree that champions are really good, if not probably one of the most important. Uh, I don't know, musicians are really important unless you're Spain, right? But I think the idea of just adding more champions to units in general, I know I've been taking more champions across my Warriors Dark Gods army. And I think there's a lot of uses for champions. And in fact, I think one of the bigger gameplay things I wish I thought about more when I played, like it's easy to sit here and be like, well, this is the best use of your champion here or whatnot, would be to actively think about where my champions are at the end of every turn. Like, I really should add a step. If I had like a little list of things I need to check at the end of a return. We all check line of sight. We all check distances. We all check this or that. Um, but sometimes just moving the location of your champion can have a really big impact on the game and thinking ahead and stuff like that. So we'll talk about some common, I'll say tricks people do. I don't like calling it tricks. I know young C word who's going to watch this is going to be upset that I talk about one of them, the ones he does, but a lot of people do it. And so it's good to know about it at least at a time. So we'll start with that one. So one common trick is, characters have to attack. So characters can't swirling melee. This is very important. So a character touching a champion has to attack it. So actually, we'll start with another example. So let's just take this example right here. This big unit of orcs versus unit of warriors. If and let's assume they have a champion to take the challenge. Because obviously, if they don't have a champion to take challenges, doesn't matter. It still matters, actually. It actually weirdly does matter. So fuck it. They don't have a champion. They charge you. These orcs charge you, right? Well, you're going to challenge with your champion. He's going to get roasted by the Pharaoh Orc Warlord, whatever. He does 5 wounds, we'll say, making up 4 wounds to you. You do 0, blah, 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 right? And I know warrior champions have 2 wounds, but just make the assumption they only have 1 wound for some of these purposes. So that's fine. I'm gonna take the challenge. He won't kill the unit, and then blah blah blah. But you could, and if they had a champion, this wouldn't be true, right? If they had a champion, he would just attack the unit. If you challenge, the champion would take it, and you'd be screwed. In that sense, he would kill like 4 models or something. But if you would have just thought beforehand and said, he has to maximize like this, he's only going to be touching this guy. I'm going to make this guy my champion. Then when he charges you, this guy is only in contact with your champion, which means you don't even have to challenge. In fact, if he challenges, you should decline. He can only kill the champion with his attacks. This only helps if the orcs go second. If the orcs go first, they could technically put attacks onto your champion, try to kill him, and then at the agility step of the feral, attack your unit. So you have to think about agility steps, but it also forces attacks onto your champion. There's no real big downside to this unless you want your unit to die, because this is this is where the Chaos Lord having 2 or warrior unit having 2 wounds in the champ matters, because if they try to focus their attacks to get, say he's a great weapon, they try to focus their attacks on him to get rid of him for the Warwick Lord to attack the unit, then perhaps they don't kill him or they only do a wound, and then it's even more detrimental because he only has that one guy to attack. But nonetheless, you could make this happen so he can only kill 1, and now it's the rest of your unit versus the rest of their unit, and the possibility is you just maybe hold or win. This is a kind of an extreme example, but it's possible. I also, something you could do, and I think people don't think about, including myself, would be, obviously if this unit, it just so happened to be it was 7 wide. But let's just say it was a more typical unit that is 5 wide, right? Well, this doesn't work with this because he could always just hit over here and stuff like that. Now, one thing that does matter is the opposite, right? This is more anticipating, right? From both sides. If my champ is here and, it's the turn before or something, you're not really thinking about it. no one's going to charge each other. But when if he moves up here and says, fuck you, I can beat you, right? Well, now you wish your champion would have been here. Now he could always, now let's say you did this, he could always move his guy over and it wouldn't matter, but it kind of puts the onus on the enemy to think of it, right? So if you would have put your champ here preemptively, and he probably wasn't thinking about it because he knows you have to maximize. But if he comes here and you can charge like this, and all of a sudden he can only kill this one guy, and now you get your rest of your attacks there. And depending if they had steadfast or not, or if you thought you could break them, you had something coming in, this could be a really big deal to force him to only attack here. So I actually think champion in the middle is one of the worst starting positions. In fact, you're probably getting more use out of champions being on the flanks to start the game than anything else. That being said, there are things to think about when it comes to like knights or something, right? Let's think of knights. Knights, right? So let's just say you're facing this Omen of Apocalypse unit, and for whatever reason you need to go in front of it, and you just don't want to lose all your knights, right? You know you're going to break whatever, and you put this here. It doesn't matter because he's going to just touch you like that. But what you could do, in theory, is you could just make this unit 3 wide, right? You make this unit 3 wide, and these aren't always the best examples. But let's just say you made this unit 3 wide. First off, you're not going to be steadfast because this unit has ranks. You're going to lose a model, so you're not going to have ranks. So other than attacks, there is nothing that going 3 wide really does that detrimental to you. But what it does do in this particular case is it makes it so if he charges in, he can only attack your champion. So if you are in the assumption that, if this guy can touch your unit, he's going to, let's just say he's so strong, he's going to kill like 4 guys. Right? And let's just say these aren't spears and they're AP1 and you're going to make your save. This could be the difference between breaking with 6 guys or breaking with 9 guys alive. Right? And if you break and your goal is to survive and rally, and maybe you still die to pursue, maybe you don't. But like, other than losing a couple attacks, which would have probably been what? 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even less, because if you're this wide, you're losing the models in the back, right? So in this case, you're going to have 6 models, 3 and 3, 6, 9 attacks, we'll say. But if it was this, right, and he could touch, and we'll say he kills 4 because that's the math we decided to do. 3, 4. I mean, you had one, you have a couple more attacks, but not so many to tip the combat potentially. So I actually think there's a lot of reasons to sometimes just accept you're going to lose the combat. It depends on the situation, of course, and just take less attacks. This is probably more. I think one thing in this game with like chaff and stuff we've talked about, where one reason like beefy chaff like Yetis I think are kind of interesting and kind of cool is because a lot of the times units like ranked units like goblins or orcs or something don't really kill them all. They win because they do a couple wounds, the Yetis can't do enough, and they have static res to beat them. But actually, chaff that doesn't fully die is actually really obnoxious for a lot of armies, because you're probably, because a lot of times, especially if you get chaffed early in the game, you don't want to pursue turn 2 or 1 because you're just running into the enemy without the rest of your army, right? Especially if you just think of this example, right? If this unit would kill this whole unit, but let's just say you would have charged here, and this was blocking 2 units, and let's say it was a unit blocked here and here, and let's just say 1 guy lives. You probably don't want to pursue because you'd probably end up like here, and then assumingly the Warriors player had stuff lined up for this. So there's a lot of times where having tankier chaff or just not killing the whole unit is a big deal. Take for example this unit. If there's if they break with like 3 left and they rally, then you're kind of like, well, shit, man, I didn't really do anything. So that's a reason why it could be big just to have the champion survive, or champion take away attacks from characters, and not even in fights you're going to lose. Sometimes in fights you're going to win, where just covering up the character is a really big deal. I mean, that's part of the thing with we look at 20mm units. Especially this is why 25 can have advantages. If you're facing, let's just say it's this wide, and I don't know, this champion marker is the Spear Lord. Then depending on where your champion is, and this is maybe why it depends on what unit you're facing. This is why thinking about it actively is so important. Let's say this is the spear high elf guy that kills everything, and he's just in a unit of spearmen, and he's facing a warrior unit. Well, depending on where he is, you're going to have to touch with all five, right? So it really depends on where if you can do it correctly and know where he's going to be, like this, you can charge him in such a way that you cover him up, and he can't do anything. He has to attack the one champ, and then you kill the unit around him. Obviously, if he's on the flank, you have some options. I think if you're here, you can do it. No, you can't. If he's on the flank, that's good for him. Yours has to be. So there is, like I said, a lot of these champion tactics. Not a lot of them. Some of them have good counterplay to them. If the other person is smart enough to know to do it. And I think that this is not niche, but this is such a next level of thinking. Like it really, like the scope of it is, there's so many better things to think about for most players that thinking about where my champion lines up for 2 turns ahead of charging or 1 turn is probably not in their thought process. This probably also happens a lot more after, like, if something kills something with chaff, because you have the opportunity to reposition your champion in a way that matters. And sometimes it really does matter, whether it's to be not in a fight, to be in a fight. I can think of a lot of reasons to think about where the champion would go. And we'll keep going on. So, a common tactic is something like this, but with maybe Minotaurs, or Minotaurs is the most popular one. It works for ogres too. But if this was to be charged by, say, a herald, right? And let's just say the herald didn't have breath or anything. Well, you can either challenge if you want. I don't know why you would in this case. But because the herald can only attack the champ, the best he can do is 3, and you're guaranteed to have at least 2 guys swing back. Now, most likely, even if there was no champion, sure, if there was no champion, he might be able to kill more. This might be a better example with, like, a Portent Lord, for example. If a Portent Lord was charged here, he could only do 3 wounds, and you'd always get the 6 back at him. In fact, from a combat res perspective, right, the most a character could win by, unless they have different agility steps, is 4, which minus whatever wounds you do. So this is kind of common as well, which is pretty cool. Fast cav champions, I think, are pretty nice. Not only for if your army is heavily, like, single models, like heralds and chaos lords, it's nice for taking challenges for them. Like, you charge them in, this champ takes the challenge. Like, having a mobile champ is pretty nice. But also, verse characters that only have 1 agility step, this can be super sweet, right? So think of it this way. If somebody had a Scourge, let's say this was a Scourge, or even a Demon Prince is a perfect example, assuming they don't have breath, right? If this Demon Prince, if I'm just chilling back with my fast cav and stuff, and the Demon Prince flies here, see if I can even see. So, liar. You can see this might be innocuous to the Warriors player, but you could charge him. All right, you could charge him in the flank. And because you have a champion, he can challenge, you decline. All he can do is kill the champ, and you've tied combat. No, you've won because he did 1 wound. You have flank charge. There's nothing he can do. You can't lose this combat as long as he has 1 agility step. Same with a Scourge. You could chaff a Scourge by charging him with this dart. He can only attack this. He can only win by 0 because you're going to have charge. He's going to have 1 kill. Maybe you do a win with the back guys. And that's it. You hold him. He's chaff for this guy's turn, his own turn. And yeah. So this is very similar to what people do with, say, I've talked about barbarian horsemen, or just even warrior units. People do this where you have, you have a unit of them and they have a champion. And this is why, like, I really want champs in my barb horsemen is, if you have a rank, you can charge a dragon and hold it up because you're going to charge it. They're going to kill the champ. You're going to have rank. You're going to be steadfast at least. But the funny thing is, this one is even more reliable because as long as you make the charge, they can't attack anything else. Now, this could technically go in a line and do the same thing, but it's less likely to work because this at least can get out of it if needed. So that's a cool one. I think people don't think about is like the champ going in, and it still works with like, you know, if you're helping charging, like let's say you're charging this guy and you're charging multiple things at this unit. You could go like this and you could hit this. Well, in this case, you'd have to max him. Let's say it wasn't that. Let's say it was the Herald or something. If you do this and you think you can break him or something, this could be really good because even if he has a champion, there's nothing he can do. Because this guy can only attack this, the Herald can attack the unit, blah, blah, blah. Just it's nice to have, it can block attacks pretty easily. Yes, they help for minima, they always count as 4 for charges. They have an extra attack, which is nice. This is also another reason why it's a good habit to put attacks on the champions if you can. Sometimes I even put more than one attack. Sometimes you can just put one attack and say, all right, I hope I kill it. And sometimes you need to think about whether their enemy champion is that important that it's worth putting 2 or 3 attacks. And if you overkill it by 1 or 2, maybe that's okay. It's really something to think about, though. But usually you should always throw 1 attack at the champ if you can. Warriors are a little bit different because their champs have 2. And so sometimes it's actually not worth it to attack the champ because it's that weird math of like, do I think I'm going to kill him? If I don't kill him, then I don't really gain anything from doing 1 wound, especially if it's a unit like this, where if you do a wound to the champ and not the unit, it retains the rank. Stuff like that. So that's another thing about champs that's really nice. One counter point to champs is actually kind of a cool thing you could do as let's say I'm what's a good example? So let's say they chaff my Herald with this unit, right? And I say I'm going to charge it, whatever. And they could do 2 things. They could, and let's say they want me to kill them because they have some counter charge behind it or something, right? This might work better with a different unit like Direwolf. Let's use Direwolf. Let's say these are Direwolves with a champ, right? Now, sometimes people chaff to, the Direwolves charge, they challenge, they can't die even with overkill. So if I charge in here with my Herald, the best I can do is 4 wounds to the Direwolf champ, right? If he challenges, and I'll have charge, I'll 5. So I can't kill this unit unless he doesn't challenge me. Now, the vampire player has a choice to make. He can challenge me or he can't. If he challenges me, the Direwolves never die. If he doesn't challenge me, they likely die. Assuming I kill like 4. I need to kill like 4. Not even that. 3 and a stomp. They need to kill 4. But with stomps and 6 attacks, I'd probably kill them all. Assuming I don't have stomps, because I can't control that. Let's say this was the situation. I don't know. Assume this is some badass, I don't know, vampire unit. Assuming this. And they want the Direwolves, they want me to go in, die, and then to be charged by this. Well, what I could do as the Warriors player is I could say, okay, I could challenge. And they could go, haha, I'm not challenging, fuck you. But what I could do is just direct all my attacks on the champion. I have the choice now. I could direct all my attacks at the champion. I kill 1 with stomps. I win by 3. Boom. There's only 3 left. He can't get in with this unit. Now he has to raise to them or risk. Like if he doesn't raise to them, he risks me just killing them in his turn, and now I get to free pivot anywhere I want to go. So there are times where if you think you're going to break the unit and you don't want to, if you put all your attacks on the champion, you can limit how many wounds you do. And then if you think, and then the next turn, you can kill the rest of the unit, and now you're out on their turn, especially if they're trying to chaff you on your turn. So that's something cool to do, directing attacks at champions to actually minimize wounds. This is actually something that comes up more than people think because sometimes I was charged by adjudicators once, and I had like warriors. I was chaffing him, and he didn't want to kill me because he wanted to overrun. He wanted to pursue like a different direction. Like he had, he had like a charge in the front, and then like he flanked me with something. I don't know. Who cares what it was? He flanked me with something, and he didn't want to kill me. He wanted me to have one guy left. And he was going to break me. Like, I was not going to hold. It was too many models. And I told him after the fight, I was like, you should have directed, like, you should have touched the champion with 3, like this. And you should have directed all 9 attacks on the champ. You're going to kill the champ, obviously. And then you have a chance that you kill just enough with the rest, right? To have one left and break me the way you want. So there are times where if you don't want to break somebody, to just direct all your attacks on the champion to minimize your damage. So there, like I said, again, that's probably how to take advantage of champions. But I still think it's better to have champions. People don't think of that shit. A big common one in combats would be, you're here. I don't know. Get a unit out. Oh yeah, like whatever. You hit this guy unit with 2 things. And for whatever reason, it holds, right? Let's just say you hit it. Let's just say this is after the fighting happens. After the fight happens, this is what the combat looks like. Let's say this guy killed some champion, who knows? Or he's not even that far. What you could do, since the orc player can't reform, you can move your champion to this model. You can move your champion to this model, and now all of a sudden, in the next turn, this guy can only attack this. So there's ways to cover up champions characters in the second round. For example, we were talking about the warrior unit charging in. I don't have the warrior unit ready, but if the warrior unit were to charge in, and maybe he kills some, and you both hold because maybe the knights did more wounds. Again, you can do the same thing. You can make this the champion, or if it's a 20 millimeter unit in the second round, you can cover it up with you can move your unit. Definitely, it's something to think about. Think about, can you screw characters with champions? I get asked this rule a lot about, can they only attack champions? And the answer is yes. If you're touching a champion, you can only attack a champion, and it really messes with people's minds. Get really pissed off about it. So something good to think about. You can really mess people up with reforms. And again, it's situational. You just got to know how the rules work. You can pull champions out of combat with reforms. That we've talked about that in my reform video, so that is something to note. I think one of my favorite things in the game is tactics that involve not allowing the enemy to pursue or to reform. So a non-champion thing, but a challenge thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about challenges and how they work. I've learned some new rules. They don't come up that often to me, but some interesting ones. The one tactic, which is one of my favorite things I want to pull off one day, I just haven't had a chance to yet, would be the declining challenge thing. So let's just say, this is a unit with Omen of Apocalypse Warlord chilling in the center. And he's like, I can kill that Herald. Let's just say my Herald took Veilwalker and shit. He's like, I can fuck that Herald up. And let's say he's in a predicament where he has to let this charge happen. These 2, right? Well, he can challenge me, and I could just decline. I can't get attacked by these orcs, but I'm defense 8, doesn't matter. And my Elder on the other side should take care of winning the combat, right? So then this may die. And let's just say this unit was really big, especially if it's like Clan Rats or something with like a Doomblade. That's probably more of a real example. If you actually, let's say you hit the unit far back enough, like super far back. Let's do right. So let's say there's like a Doomblade in the front of the unit, and you hit it like this, right? You just decline the challenge with the Herald. Obviously, if they were 2 monsters, this would work a lot better, but this is where you can maybe bait somebody a little bit because they don't realize what you're going to do. if they challenge, you decline it. He can't attack. That's fine. This guy's going to win the combat for you, and he's going to kill a bunch. And then, he's stubborn. He's stubborn doesn't matter, but he's supernal. So as long as he doesn't lose, he'll may take a wound or two. But let's just say that you win because you have big flank, and you have a elder killing things. The vermin guy can never reform, and so eventually it'll actually just be one on. This will be the result. No matter how many rats are there, as long as you keep winning and nothing breaks, eventually you'll get to this one, and then you'll slide down just one guy at a time. This will die. You slide down one. So there will be a point where it's only 2 rats or 2 whatever versus your big guys. He keeps declining the challenge, and then you just kill the unit with the herald, and eventually maybe it's this, and you break their steadfast and just kill them like that. That's a cool move. I did learn challenge though. So interesting challenge thing I learned. Let's say this is a vampire lord over here, right? And let's just say for whatever purpose, you charge in. There's no champion. Let's just say there's no champion. Let's just say you have to hit need something with it. Let's just say a fast caveat. Let's just say you have to go in whatever. You go in like this, and that's a vampire lord on the left. I challenge with my herald. He declines because he's like, okay, we'll say I don't have a champion. He declines this challenge, and you say, okay. His theory is only the fast cav can attack me. I'll survive it. I'll raise my champion next turn. Blah blah blah. If you raise the champion and take the challenge with the herald, this guy can still not attack. In fact, he can't attack until a couple things happen. So let's open the rulebook real quick. And we'll go to the duel section. We'll talk about this. Apparently people knew this and I didn't. So if you decline a duel, you're discipline 0, no melee attacks, no rally, no +1 BSB. That's all. So, at the end of the player turn, which combat... Okay, so you only lose these effects. So they only go away if at the end of the player turn in which the combat ends, when the chosen character accepts or issues a duel, at the end of the player turn, if there's no longer is an enemy model engaged in the same combat that could accept a duel. So this is actually... I've heard that... I thought this one was... So this one is very clear, right? This is the combat ends you kill everything in the combat. This is when the character chosen accepts or declines a duel. So that would be the vampire lord. And then at the end of the player turn, if there no longer is an enemy model engaged in that could accept a duel. So this apparently doesn't say has to be able to accept the duel, period. For example, let's just say the extreme case of... So you raise back the champion. The champion now takes the challenge for the herald, right? Fights the herald. He can't attack because none of these conditions have been met. He didn't issue a duel. There's still people in combat, and there's still characters who can take the duel. If the champion survives, I thought that at the end of the player turn, if they're no longer enemy that could accept the duel, meant that, okay, the herald can't accept the duel because the champion and him are fighting, so that counts as that. But apparently you need somebody in the fight that absolutely he's still a character that can accept a duel. Does that make sense? It's like having fly but not being able to fly. He's still a model with fly. He just can't use fly. Does that, you know what I mean? So apparently what I was told was, even if the champion lives or dies, this vampire is never going to be able to attack unless he issues a duel or there's nobody left. And I think it said characters. Any model. So, said differently also, let's say he declines and there is a champ here. And the Herald dies. Whatever. And now he's like, and let's say he raises his champion back. Whatever. So remember, he hasn't challenged anybody yet. And the Herald died to something. Whatever. He is now has to challenge and take it with the like he couldn't. Let's say this wasn't Fast Cabinet or something bigger. He now has to challenge to get out of the stasis of being refusal. And then the Warriors player could just take it with the champ and say "fuck you" and then kill the unit with the rest of the unit. Wow, that's pretty. Refusing a duel is really bad. I think the situation that comes up, people said, would be, you charge a unit with a character. You challenge. They don't take it with their BSB, and then they try to take the challenge with the champion the second round, and now the BSB still doesn't get turned on. So refusing a challenge is really bad, like really bad. I didn't realize how bad it could get, but it's bad. Anyway, yep. I think I covered everything in the champions I wanted to. I would say, generally speaking, champions are very good, especially if we have single model characters that want to challenge. I think they also provide a lot of opportunities to block units and really mess people up. The last one. This one's kind of obscure, but okay. Yeah, I'll talk about it. So, right. So this is like a really weird one, I think. I gotta talk. Yeah, fine. Okay. I think of the situation that it would matter in. Ogres, maybe? Ogres is probably solid. Well, okay, let's say, for example, you have this big ass unit, and it gets charged by a herald, and it gets charged by. This is a combat removal thing more so. Is this the example I want to do? I need an example where they have steadfast. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is a pretty funny example, actually. This one would be really crazy if you pulled it off, I think. Let's say the enemy puts himself like this, right? And for shits and giggles, there is a character bunker sitting back here, right? Just chilling. Now, in the Warriors player's head, well, they're both Warriors, but in this player's head, they're like, oh shit, my character's fine. We'll say the Herald can't get here. If he charges this unit, I'll be steadfast because this is fast cav and this is a Herald, and the Herald's not going to do 8 wounds. Or they'll just lose because I'll wreck the fast cav, right? So if he charges the Herald in, oh no, I challenge, whatever, I'm steadfast. But the weird move you could do is, and geez, if you ever pulled this off in a game, it'd be awesome. This is why thinking about where your champion is really important. So let's just, this is going into combat removal that I don't want. We'll do it. We'll do one example because it involves the champion. If there was no champion and you double charge this, you could hit like this and you could clip, right? Easy peasy. So let's say in all examples, the Herald does 4 wounds. First agility step. The fast cap does 0. And then the Feldrakes kill the fast cap. Let's just say that is the steps of how this combat will always go. The Herald will kill one. Now, one thing to note here is where the unit of this is. If it's here or here, it matters. So in this example, you're covering up this corner. That's very important for this. This isn't. Right? if the Herald kills one, you have to pull this guy off, because if you pull this guy off, the Herald can't slide, which means that you have, for priority's sake, you have to kill this one. So you kill this one, these guys kill this, they tie combat because they heralded 4, blah, 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 right? Nothing happens. Or they're steadfast, either one. If this was the champion, right? Like characters, champion models get removed where they're at. Now, normally what happens is, now you check if there is a gap, an illegal formation, and then you fill that gap as needed. So this also works actually without a Herald. This actually is probably better suited for, because the Herald has to attack the champion there. But something like an Elder doesn't have to attack the champion. It can attack the unit. So if he kills, here's a good example. So if he kills one of the unit, this one dies. If he kills the champion dies. Let's say he is the first agility step. Because this is not an illegal formation. Nobody's in an illegal formation, and this guy can't nudge because there's no corner open, and this unit can't nudge because you don't nudge when you're in combat like this. The Elder is now considered out of combat. So no matter what happens here, he's going to win, count as being win, and can overrun. If these guys kill 4 and this thing holds with 1 wound, this guy gets to overrun. He doesn't get put in because it's after the agility step, right? Unless it's agility step based. So if these don't die before this guy attacks, he can't move over. He's out of combat. He can overrun. So in theory, in this example, you could charge this unit of Feldrax, and as long as you kill the champion before they get to attack, you would break them and get to free overrun the Elder, and the Horseman would just stay. Now, if this corner wasn't covered up, or whatever, let's say most people would do something like this, where this guy can only attack this, and these 3 can attack this, especially if these were knights or something. Then, if this guy died, you would shift him over. See what I'm saying? So that's something where champion positioning can be, very scary, especially if you're in a big line of knights or any type of cav. You're 7 wide knights, and is 7 the right number? No, if you're 6 wide knights, and you get charged by this, and this, no matter what you do, if this Herald kills this guy, he's overrunning. So people might look at this. So this is a good example too, because people might look at this and say, "Fuck it! If the Herald comes in, I'm just going to challenge him, and I'm going to be steadfast." And there's nothing he can do because the fast cav can't break the steadfast. Right? People will do this shit a lot. But you could say, "I'm going to charge in my fast cav to cover up this corner," and you need a unit that can do it. He's going to hit here. Boom, initiative step, Herald kills, champion. There's nobody in the back rank to fill it. You don't slide anybody. He gets to go free. Doesn't matter what happens here. That's actually a very cool one, and that's actually how it works. Again, that's probably more of a combat removal question or tactic, and there are a ton of combat removal tactics. Oh my god, it's crazy what you can do with combat removal if you plan ahead of time. The rules are also kind of complicated. I know it's funny. Thomas said, "Why are all the questions now about combat removal? I'm tired of hearing about it." And the reason is because we've kind of gone through all the other rules. This is all that's left. It's one of the last remaining really complex situations in the game. And I could go on about it, but I'm not going to. I'll say that for another video. Anyway, take champions, abuse them, really think about where they are, because I think they can have huge impacts on the game. And there's a lot of times where I'm just like, fuck, if I would have just moved my champion, I'd be in a much better position. You don't think about it on the board. Sometimes you just don't think about it. And again, you already saw that there are some counters to the champion placement and stuff like that. But allow yourself the opportunity to knock it counter, right? Make them think about a lot of things. If you put your champion in the right spot and they don't move correctly and move it, that's why also when you play games, beginning of the game, say which model is your champion. And honestly, if they charge you and they don't have it marked, I would just say it's what I get to choose. I think that's fair. Say I think it's this. I want it to be this guy because especially if it's like advantage, disadvantage position. Don't let them just all of a sudden, oh, it's this guy. He's always in the middle. Be like, no. And that's why my units, the champion is. I have 9 identical models and 1 model's different, and he's the champion. All the time. You got to make it that you can't question which one's the champion. It's this guy. He looks different. Stuff like that. So anyway, thanks for listening.